Hi, I'm Dwayne Brown. Tonight on KPBS Evening Edition, a California senator says she has new information on San Onofre and what Southern California Edison knew about problems with its steam generators before they were installed.
I'm Amita Sharma. Tonight, Mayor Bob Filner gives us his take on a range of topics, from the Plaza de Panama ruling to efforts to reopen San Onofre nuclear plant. And a new program seeks to cut back on hospital readmissions.
And we'll show you how a San Diego charter school is training the next generation of teachers. KPBS Evening Edition starts now. KPBS Evening Edition is made possible by Joan and Erwin Jacobs and by Good evening. Thanks for joining us. Breaking news on the shutdown at San Onofre Nuclear Generating Station tonight in the North County. Amita Sharma has the latest on a letter the Senate Committee on Environment and Public Works sent to nuclear regulators today.
California Senator Barbara Boxer called on the nation's nuclear watchdog today to investigate what she calls new information that San Onofre nuclear plant's majority owner, Southern California Edison, knew of serious problems with the plant's troubled steam generators before they were installed. Joining me to talk about Boxer's letter to the Nuclear Regulatory Commission is Arnie Gunderson. He's a consultant for the environmental group Friends of the Earth. Arnie, Senator Boxer says new information shows that Edison knew there were serious problems with the design of these replacement generators even before the company installed them. What new information is she talking about?
I haven't seen the report, and I think we should all ask to get that report because it's important. But no, Edison has been saying since these steam generators broke that they could never have foreseen this problem in advance. Well, not only was this problem foreseeable, but they actually foresaw it, apparently. It seems like they had prior warning and chose to ignore the warnings and build these steam generators anyway.
Arnie, we contacted Southern California Edison for an interview. They declined. In a statement, a spokesperson said SCE leadership takes very seriously all allegations raised in this letter. The plant has provided voluminous records, data, information, and other accurate reports as requested in the months since the plant was shut down. Arnie, it was a tiny radioactive release in a worn tube inside one of these steam generators that ultimately was responsible for Edison shutting down the plant. Any sense of whether this new information would explain the premature wearing on those tubes?
Yeah, while this leak was tiny, it didn't have to be, and it could have been huge. So in a sense, we were all lucky that it started out small and didn't grow. But I think the key here is that the leak was caused by something that they analyzed while this thing was being designed, way back in, I don't know, 04 or 05. But they went ahead with the fabrication anyway. And it ties back into their contract with Mitsubishi. In 04, they had a contract with Mitsubishi that said that Mitsubishi was not allowed to make the determination that a license requirement had been needed to be flown by the Nuclear Regulatory Commission. So they had planned for years to keep the public out of the loop here.
And we're probably going to find out more information about that in the next couple of days. But, you know, Arnie, the Nuclear Regulatory Commission has been investigating the problems with the steam generators for 1 year now. Why did Senator Boxer discover this and not the nuclear watchdog?
Well, I think personally that makes me very grateful that someone in the nuclear community gave this report to Senator Boxer. It's likely the Nuclear Regulatory Commission would not have taken it seriously unless it came from a senator. So someone in the community provided it to Senator Boxer, and I think we should all be grateful that somebody took that risk and stuck their neck out.
And we should say we asked an NRC representative to come on the program. The agency declined, but spokeswoman Laura Uselding released this statement. She says, "We have received the letter from Senator Boxer and Congressman Markey and will respond in the normal course of business. As an independent safety agency, we will review all available information in making a judgment as to whether the plant would meet our safety standards if restart were permitted." What do you want to see the NRC do, Arnie, very quickly?
Well, I don't think Edison's been open and honest with the NRC or with the people in Southern California. So it's hard to let a plant run when the owner of the plant hasn't been open and honest.
Arnie Gunderson, thank you so much for speaking to us today.
All right, thank you.
An annual report on drug violence in Mexico says the problem appears to be improving. The study comes from the University of San Diego's Transborder Institute. Fronteras reporter Adrian Florido joins us from the News Center with more on the report. So, Adrian, how big of a decline are we talking about?
At the end of 2011, the report that the USD puts out every year said that drug violence was still increasing in Mexico, but that it seemed to be leveling off. It was increasing at a slower rate than it had at years past. This year, they're saying that it appears that it might have actually decreased. In 2011, there were 27,000 homicides in Mexico. This last year, there were estimated to be about 20 to 25,000 homicides nationally.
And do we know how many of those were drug-related murders?
It's always kind of tricky to tell because it's difficult data to collect. And it was especially tricky for the Research Institute this year because they weren't able to get data from the Mexican government. The Mexican government withheld that data. But based on scouring of news reports, on tallies that the nation's largest newspapers keep, they estimate that between 45 and 60% of all the homicides last year were drug-related.
Fronteras reporter in Florido. County Health Agency says at least 30 people have died from the flu in San Diego since November. The youngest was 42 and the oldest person was 99. All but one of those patients had underlying health problems or were elderly. So far, the agency has confirmed 3,000 cases of the flu this season, but says the number is low because many cases aren't recorded. There's still time to get a flu shot. To find a location near you, call 211 or visit sdiz.org. Now, we have an update on a story we've been following for quite some time here at KPBS. Researchers have discovered the first U.S. cases of whooping cough that may be resistant to the vaccine. San Diego County went through its worst whooping cough epidemic in 2010, and KPBS was the first to report most of the folks who got sick were already immunized. Scientists don't believe the new strain is more deadly, but they suspect the vaccine may not work as well against it. The new bug has already been identified in Japan, Finland, and France. San Diego Mayor Bob Filner wants the Nuclear Regulatory Commission to hold a court-style public hearing on whether San Onofre is ready to reopen. Amitha Sharma is in for Peggy Pico tonight. She spoke with the mayor about San Onofre and a range of other topics, including this week's ruling on the Plaza de Panama project.
Mayor Bob Filner, welcome to the program. The big news this week is a judge throwing out Irwin Jacobs' remodeling plan for Plaza de Panama on grounds that it violated city code. How does a plan like this get past the city attorney's office, get past the city council without anyone foreseeing that it violated city law and couldn't withstand a legal challenge?
Well, I think they were told that. I told them that at a city council meeting. They chose not to listen. They thought they could bully their way through the whole system. But look, we appreciate Dr. Jacobs' philanthropy and willingness to help. We also agree with the end result, that is to get the cars out of Balboa Park. But I think that can be done now at a much cheaper, lower technology way that will preserve both the topology and geography of the park, but keep cars out. I wrote a plan 20 years ago when I was on the city council to park cars around in the perimeter of Balboa Park, even have a parking structure outside, and then use a tram system to get people into the park. That tram system becomes part of the experience of Balboa Park. So I hope we can move forward with that.
And do you expect something like that to happen before the centennial celebration in 2015?
I do, because look, the centennial celebration would have required something like that anyway, because we're going to have to keep cars out. So we would have had to do this in any case. So let's start now, show that it works, and build from there.
On the topic of allowing medical marijuana dispensaries to operate within the city, you're working on an ordinance you say is similar to one that was adopted by the City Council 2 years ago, but that was successfully repealed. How do you make sure that doesn't happen again?
You know, this is a balance that we have to try to strike that I'm going to attempt to do within about 3 or 4 weeks. And that is, on the one hand, the state referendum and humanitarian concerns require that we provide access to medical marijuana to people who need it, who are in chronic pain, who have cancer, who have a doctor's prescription for that. On the other hand, we don't want neighborhoods to be intruded on and their quality of life. We don't want children to have access to marijuana, and we have to restrict it, to those who need medical marijuana. That's a balancing act that's handled partially through zoning, and the City Council previously, I think, was too restrictive. I think if we restrict to industrial and commercial zones, for example, if we have a permit fee that is real, that would just keep fly-by-night people out, that we have strict requirements about distances from schools and churches, for example, we can have the balance that we need. So we're going to try to strike that balance. It's not easy, but we will try to do that.
Several prominent developers and other supporters of Carl DeMaio's in the November election are helping to pay down your campaign debt. Did you solicit that money? If not, are you surprised?
Well, we were left with, actually, in the scheme of things, a pretty low debt, as these things go, about $100,000. And we've asked our previous contributors and anybody who wanted to support me moving forward to help me bring down that debt. There's a city law requires me to do that within 6 months, or you cannot raise money after that. I invite anybody and everybody who wants to contribute to do that. Everybody knows from my 30 years in politics, nobody can buy me with a campaign contribution. I'm going to be an independent person no matter what. I'm not even sure always who has been giving, because we put a report after 6 months. So, excuse me. So I invite people. We have strict limits. There's a $500 limit on campaign contributions to mayoral candidates, and anybody who wants to join into helping me with that debt, we welcome.
You've spoken about the need for the city of San Diego to plan for climate change, for sea level rise. And yet there are these flood projection maps that show the San Diego Convention Center expansion underwater in 38 years. How concerned are you about those maps?
Oh, I'm very concerned. As I said during the campaign, if we want to protect our beaches, we should get our head out of the sand. That is, we have to take this seriously. Obviously, internationally, nationally, statewide, and locally. And we have a responsibility in San Diego to do whatever we can. We can't, stop the glaciers from melting, but we can take in our energy situations and the use of our water, our carbon emissions. We can take steps here. I've asked a couple people recently to chair a committee, which we'll announce soon, on to come up with a very strategic climate management plan for San Diego, which will require things like zero energy kinds of buildings in the future, and we have to contribute whatever we can to this effort.
As you know, Southern California Edison wants to reopen San Onofre nuclear plant at a reduced capacity. Several cities in Southern California are pressuring federal regulators not to let that happen until a trial-like public hearing is held, in which Edison has to prove that this plant is safe to reopen. What's your position?
Yeah. Well, I think that hearing is absolutely critical and necessary. Look, we don't want to be a 3 Mile Island. We don't want to be at Chernobyl. We don't want to have a situation as they had in Japan. I mean, the safety of nuclear plants is very shaky. And if they're on earthquake faults, if they're near the ocean, as San Onofre is, and in this case, when a steam generator has enormous problems with some of the critical components, then as someone who has to care primarily about the safety of our citizens, I will be a voice for saying, unless you can assure us, all of our citizens, of the safety of that plant, we should not reopen it. And so we have to have a hearing to do that.
So far, the city of San Diego hasn't taken a formal position on this. Do you want to see that happen?
Well, I have, and I would hope if the city council will not, I will speak as the mayor at those hearings and say, and I think their plan for running it at a reduced level to see how safe it is very, very irresponsible. You're talking about nuclear accident as possible. I mean, we're talking about millions of people who can be at risk. So I don't want to see it open before it's proven safety first.
San Diego Mayor Bob Filner, thank you for coming on the program.
Thank you.
County supervisors voted 4-1 to approve a solar power plant in Ramona. The Soul Orchard project will cover 43 acres with solar panels where a dairy farm is currently located. Some neighbors and opponents say the plant will be an eyesore and won't add any long-term jobs. Mostly positive reaction from San Diegans we spoke to about news the Postal Service plans to suspend Saturday mail delivery this summer. The plan to shrink delivery from 6 days to 5 would only affect first-class mail beginning in August, while packages, mail order, medicines, priority, and express mail would still get delivered on Saturdays. The Postal Service lost $16 billion last year and thinks the move will save about $2 billion a year.
About time. You know, if they're going bankruptcy, they got to cut their expenses. They're a business like any other business. You know, all the businesses have cut back. They need to.
Everybody emails, and it's a changing time, and then they let everybody take their business like UPS.
My opinion is it's a long time coming. It really is. As far as the postal establishment, they need to let the government just get out of it altogether and let it be a company run, so they'll make the money they need to make and have the government stop taking what the money they're making now.
I think there is a place for the post office, but they knew it is a business, so they do need to make that decision. Anyways, I agree with it.
And here's what a local representative with the Postal Service said, quote, "There is no longer sufficient volume to sustain 6 days of mail delivery. We developed this approach working with our customers to understand their delivery needs and by identifying creative ways to generate significant cost savings." Now, the move accentuates one of the agency's strong points. Package delivery has actually gone up 14% since 2010, while letters and other mail has declined with the increasing use of email and internet services. People facing a terminal illness will have a new option for care in the North County. A 6-bedroom hospice house will open this summer in Carlsbad. A $1 million federal grant from the city made it possible. Hospice of the North Coast will run the facility. This comes in the wake of San Diego Hospice filing for bankruptcy. And as we reported last night, Scripps Health is adding hospice care to its offerings. Public school leaders say teacher preparation programs leave instructors well-versed in theory, but not so well-equipped to manage a classroom. KPBS education reporter Kyla Calvert tells us how high-tech high charter schools created their own teacher training programs and developed a graduate school of education in the process.
So you're going to start off with your group.
It's time for peer critique in Bobby Shaddix's advisory class at High Tech Middle School in Point Loma.
In a second, when I say the magic word, and the magic word is Projectopia.
That magic word was Projectopia. Students started this unit by brainstorming questions they had about anything. Then, Shaddix says they categorized the questions as a class.
Through creating those categories, we found similarities in our questions and also found how our questions about ourselves connect with questions about the world.
Then groups of students chose one of the broad question categories, says 8th grader Victoria Renteria.
We're making that one question, and then we're trying to look out for what can we make out of that question. Like, what product can we make?
Her group's idea for a project was a family tree.
We're basically doing a 3D tree, and we're putting our ancestors, and we're making an article about one ancestor and what kind of history part they took in.
Now students are bustling around the room, reading other groups' project ideas and leaving their comments about what will work and what might not on bright Post-it notes. At the 11 high-tech high charter schools in San Diego, project-based classes are the norm. Student-designed projects are everywhere in the 6 schools on the Point Loma campus, on the walls and ceilings, decorating the bathrooms. Since the first high-tech high school started in 2000, time for training teachers to lead these unconventional classes has been part of the school's regular schedule. That grew into a state-licensed teacher credentialing program and then into 2 master's degree programs in teacher and school leadership, which started in 2007. Ben Daly, Chief Academic Officer of the High-Tech High Graduate School of Education, says they're offering the kind of hands-on training that's missing from many traditional programs.
It's not like in traditional graduate schools, there's none of that. There's nothing practical, and in our graduate school, there's nothing theoretical. We're just saying, like, whatever that balance is, we think it's a little bit out of whack in general, and I think a lot of people think that, and so we're trying to swing it back towards more practice-based models.
Shaddix is in his 2nd year of the teacher leadership program. He points to that practicality as the major difference between this program and the traditional credentialing program he went through when he first started teaching.
Okay, Sonia has an awesome question.
It's applied, it's integrated into what I'm doing. So my action research, which is around democratic learning and collaborative design, which you guys saw earlier today, I researched that in the first year and prepared, created a thesis proposal, an outline of what I was going to do in my research in my classroom, and that's what I've done this year.
The graduate school students work full-time and attend evening classes once a week during their first year and once every other week during their second when they're conducting their research projects. And what they do in those classes can be pretty similar to what Shaddix's middle schoolers were working on. A recent first-year session starts with a large class discussion. Then students break into groups to get peer feedback on the projects they're planning for their classrooms.
So Jambox is essentially some sort of structure which people can come, interact with, and it would make music.
While many of the graduate students work in one of High-Tech High's schools, they also come from traditional public schools. Melissa Hahn is a first-grade teacher in a San Diego Unified School, and she says integrating project-based work and student feedback into her traditional classroom can be stressful.
My benchmark's going to be looked at, or my student's going to perform, so there's this pressure to feel like I got to go back and teach according to the district's curriculum that they've given to me, but I've chosen not to and stick to the standards and all that, but to teach it the way I think that my students are responding to. So I feel like the clash has been more internally for me.
Stacey Callier directs the teacher leadership program. As the graduate school moves through the accreditation process, she says they aren't looking to revolutionize teacher preparation or change the face of public education.
Our goal is not to create a bunch more high-tech highs. Like, if anything, the goal is for people to hopefully emerge from our programs with a better sense of what the education and the school that they kind of aspire and dream about looks like, and to have made some steps towards that while they're here.
But learning to run her classroom more like she might if she worked at a high-tech school is exactly what drew Hahn to the program.
My daughter was going to high-tech middle at the time, and I would go to their exhibitions and come away feeling like, these kids love what they're learning. And I didn't even need to find the teacher. The kids were happy, felt proud. And I remember going home and thinking, why can't my students have that?
The graduate school students may leave the programs equipped to lead project-based classes in schools and to change the face of public education. Kyla Calvert, KPBS News.
San Diegans drive more highway miles each day than just about anyone else in the state. In fact, Americans spent 5.5 billion hours idling in traffic in 2011, and the cost is more than just time. Matt Friedman with the Associated Press has this story.
The House will be in order. Washington is well known for political gridlock, but it now also holds the dubious distinction of being the most traffic gridlocked city in the U.S.
We have large numbers of commuters, and we have grown enormously, and we have failed to expand our transportation system as we have grown with people and business.
And being stuck in traffic isn't just an inconvenience, it costs everyone money. The latest urban mobility report says clogged roads cost Americans $121 billion in time and money in 2011.
It's horrible. It's always back to back, and the roads are worse enough, so the commute just takes forever.
That's no surprise to commuters in San Francisco, the third most congested U.S. city.
It's always getting worse with traffic.
Vignesh Arasu moved here from America's second most congested city and didn't see much difference.
It's such a small city, but for some reason it still takes as long. I used to live in LA. It takes just as long for me to commute in LA as it is here.
The rest of the top 10 include New York, Boston, and Houston. AAA says drivers should contact lawmakers and ask them to make transportation funding a bigger priority. Plus,
if they can work flex schedules so that they don't have to drive or commute in the peak of rush hour, that's helpful. More telecommuting would be helpful.
Still, the report finds that on average, Americans are allowing an hour for a commute that would take 20 minutes without traffic. Matt Friedman, Associated Press.
I'm Jeffrey Brown. On the next News Hour, the Boy Scouts decide whether to change their policy against gay membership. That's Wednesday on the PBS News Hour.
Well, it looks like wet weather is headed our way. Rain moves in along the coast with temperatures in the 50s through Saturday. The same is expected for the inland valleys. Sunny Thursday in the mountains, mid-50s, but dropping to the 30s with rain on Friday. Partly cloudy in the desert with highs in the upper 70s tomorrow. Recapping tonight's top stories, a California senator says she has new information on the San Onofre shutdown and what Southern California Edison knew about problems with its steam generators before they were installed. Senator Barbara Boxer called on the nation's nuclear watchdog to investigate. Researchers have discovered the first U.S. cases of whooping cough that may be resistant to the vaccine. San Diego County went through its worst whooping cough epidemic in 2010. KPBS was the first to report most of the people who got sick were already immunized. Scientists don't believe the new strain is more deadly, but they suspect the vaccine may not work as well against it. You can find tonight's stories and download the KPBS app all on our website, kpbs.org/evening edition. Thanks for joining us. You have a great night.